The baby's dead. She killed the kid.
You put it in the bag?
Yes.
Yeah. In what bag? Why did you say anything to us?
In late January of 2023, 19-year-old high school cheerleader Alexee Trevizo gave birth in a hospital bathroom in New Mexico and discarded the infant in the trash. She had gone to the emergency room complaining of back pain and menstrual cramps, and doctors soon discovered that she was pregnant and in labor. Shortly after Trevizo gave birth, a housekeeper discovered the infant's remains concealed beneath a garbage bag liner. Trevizo claimed that the baby was stillborn, but an autopsy found that the child, Alexee Fierro, had been breathing after he exited the womb. The teen mother was charged with first-degree murder but maintained her innocence through her defense attorney, who filed motions to suppress statements that Trevizo had made to hospital employees, police, and her mother after Alex's body was found. Prosecutors appealed the motions and Trevizo's trial is on hold while the battle over the admissibility of the evidence continues. In the meantime, Trevizo's lawyer has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hospital and several of its employees, claiming that they had knowingly given the young woman drugs that are known to cause childbirth complications even though they knew she was in labor. The complaint alleges that Trevizo did not yet know she was pregnant before she went into the restroom, where she locked herself inside for 18 minutes until staff members threatened to break the door down. The proceedings against Trevizo are expected to resume sometime next year. Number 18. Brooke Richardson. Desperate to maintain her seemingly picture-perfect life after becoming pregnant as a teenager, high school cheerleader Brooke Richardson gave birth alone in May of 2017 and buried her newborn child in the backyard of her family's Carlisle, Ohio home. During the doctor's visit 2 months later, she admitted to what had happened, claiming that the baby, whom she named Annabelle, had been stillborn. The information was passed on to law enforcement, who believed that Richardson was lying about the nature of her baby's death. Despite her claims of innocence, prosecutors charged her with aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, gross abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and child endangerment. Police exhumed the infant's remains and a medical examiner concluded that Annabelle's bones were partially charred. Richardson indicated to investigators and her parents that she had tried to cremate the body, but the medical examiner retracted her statement about the remains being charred before the case went to trial. A psychology expert later testified that Richardson may have falsely confessed to burning the body due to a condition called dependent personality disorder. Following the trial, in September of 2019, the jury acquitted Richardson of all charges except abuse of a corpse. She was sentenced to 3 years of probation and was released from supervision nearly 2 years early in 2020. Number 17. Kai DeBerry-Bostick.
Stop! Stop! Get out of the car!
Determined to avoid running late during her drive to work, one day in May of 2025, a former Bowie State University cheerleader drove into a crowded street fair in Laurel, Maryland, and hit a police officer with her car. The incident was captured in body cam footage, which reportedly showed 28-year-old Kai DeBerry-Bostick ripping down police tape and driving into the event, while ignoring the officer's orders not to do so, and his offer to call her a taxi cab. After being told that she could not remove a barrier to a road that had been closed off for the festival, the young woman said that she worked in neighboring Virginia and had to get to her job. DeBerry-Bostick then turned onto the town's main street, where she narrowly avoided hitting a man who was pushing a baby stroller while saying, "Excuse me," to pedestrians as they moved out of the way. The officer suffered minor injuries, and the incident ended with DeBerry-Bostick being pulled out of her vehicle and handcuffed on the ground. She was initially detained without bond but was later released on bail. In early September, WTOP News announced that she'll soon go to trial for 6 misdemeanor charges, including second-degree assault, resisting arrest, reckless endangerment, and disorderly conduct. Number 16. Robert Joseph Scianna Jr., Mitchell Ryan, and Jerry Harris. After rising to fame through their appearances in the Netflix series Cheer, 2 male cheerleaders graced news headlines for far less flattering reasons. Following their arrests in early 2021 for inappropriate conduct toward minors, one of the arrests occurred in Chesterfield County, Virginia, where 25-year-old coach and choreographer Robert Joseph Scianna Jr. was charged with indecent liberties with a child and using an electronic communication device to solicit inappropriate activity. According to police, he was arrested prior to a planned meeting with a minor he had connected with online for intimacy. On the same day, 23-year-old Navarro College cheerleader Mitchell Ryan was arrested in Dallas County, Texas, for assaulting a child months earlier in July of 2020. Authorities in both Virginia and Texas offered few details about the suspect's alleged criminal acts. Their arrest came 5 months after cheer breakout star Jerry Harris was accused of soliciting explicit photos and intimacy from minors. The 21-year-old was charged with multiple federal felonies, including the exploitation of children and transportation with intent for illicit conduct. Scianna, Ryan, and Harris were suspended from the U.S. All-Star Federation following their arrests. In early 2022, Harris pleaded guilty to 2 out of 7 charges and was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 8 years of supervised release. Ryan walked free after a grand jury declined to indict him due to a lack of evidence, and Scianna pleaded guilty to a solicitation charge, but the details of his sentence are unclear. Number 15. Dawan Carter Jr. In October of 2018, former University of Central Florida cheerleader Dawan Carter Jr. was arrested for allegedly assaulting at least 2 female teammates. During the first incident, which occurred in May of that year and was captured on video, Carter allegedly held the victim in a chokehold for 20 seconds, causing her to lose consciousness for 7 seconds. According to an arrest affidavit, Carter chalked the behavior up to horseplay and did not apologize or try to seek help for the victim. Carter was also accused of assaulting 2 other victims the previous month, with both complainants telling police that he had forced himself on them in their dorm rooms. He was charged with attempted manslaughter, multiple counts of battery, and other crimes in connection with the 3 cases, but pleaded no contest to just 1 battery charge. The remainder of the charges were dismissed, and records show that the judge withheld adjudication for the battery conviction and sentenced Carter to a year of probation. This likely means that he was given an opportunity to avoid prison time and other serious consequences as long as he followed certain conditions put forth by the court. The judge banned Carter from having contact with any of the 3 victims, but noted in his plea agreement that it was not considered a violation of the order for him to be in the same venue as the women as long as it was a cheerleading event, and he refrained from any contact with them. Number 14. Micah Madison Parker. In late March of 2017, a former University of Oklahoma football player was accused of prostituting an ex-cheerleader from the same college. According to court documents, an undercover vice officer made arrangements to meet with an escort, who was later identified as Micah Madison Parker. The young cop met with the young woman at a hotel in Oklahoma City, where Parker agreed to provide services in exchange for $200. After realizing that she had been targeted in a sting, the young woman threw several cell phones into the toilet. Following her arrest, Parker was charged with destruction of evidence, offering to engage in an act of prostitution, and 2 counts of possession of a controlled, dangerous substance. Further investigation turned up evidence that led detectives to suspect 22-year-old Lawrence L.J. Moore's involvement in the operation. Police arrested him when he showed up at the hotel to pick up Parker's vehicle, and he was charged with aiding and abetting prostitution, pandering, possession of a controlled, dangerous substance, and possession of marijuana. Records show that both defendants were charged with additional crimes and convicted on multiple counts. Parker was found guilty of drug possession, destroying evidence, engaging in prostitution, giving or selling an item of value for use in unlawful activity, possession with the intent to distribute, and computer fraud. She served less than 2 years of a 6-year prison sentence and was paroled in 2021. Moore was convicted of using a computer to commit a crime, 2 counts of possession of drugs with the intent to distribute, 2 counts of procuring for prostitution, and using a computer to commit a crime. He received a 10-year split incarceration and probation sentence, and records show that his supervision was revoked in recent years due to repeated run-ins with the law. Number 13. Molly Shattuck. Former Baltimore Ravens cheerleader Molly Shattuck rose to fame in 2005 after becoming the oldest cheerleader to join an NFL squad at age 38. 9 years later, in November of 2014, she was arrested in Sussex County, Delaware, for providing alcohol to minors and having intercourse with an underage boy at her beach house on Labor Day weekend. Court documents state that Shattuck met the victim, who was a friend of her son, after seeing his pictures on Instagram. The two exchanged explicit messages before escalating their interactions to physical intimacy in Shattuck's car and during a family trip that her husband wasn't present for. Shattuck fell under suspicion after the headmaster at her children's school heard about the misconduct. Following an investigation and search of the home, a grand jury indicted the 47-year-old on multiple counts related to her inappropriate conduct, including unlawful contact and providing alcohol to a minor. Prosecutors accused Shattuck of grooming the victim, plying him with alcohol, and seducing him for her own gratification, making it clear that they did not believe she experienced a sudden lapse in judgment. Shattuck initially pleaded not guilty and was released on $84,000 bond pending the outcome of her case. In August of 2015, she pleaded guilty to one of the charges and was ordered to serve 48 weekends in jail in lieu of a 15-year suspended prison sentence. The judge also ordered her to undergo counseling, pay restitution to the victim, and register as a offender. It was an overly lenient sentence in the eyes of the victim's parents, who had urged the judge to sentence the defendant to prison time. Shattuck tearfully apologized during her sentencing hearing, at times becoming so emotional she seemed to be gasping for air, as she said she would spend the rest of her life making up for her wrongdoings. Number 12. Elizabeth Leigh Garner. In March of 2013, former Tennessee Titans cheerleader Elizabeth Leigh Garner was arrested in Murfreesboro for allegedly following a preteen boy into a bathroom, groped his privates, and offering to perform a certain act. According to reports, the incident occurred at a party, and the victim was the host's son. The boy told investigators that Garner asked him if he'd ever been with a woman and pulled down his pants. He said he ran from the bathroom and told his mother, who immediately contacted law enforcement. When questioned by detectives, Garner, who was 42 at the time, claimed that she had mistook the boy for an adult man because she was drunk that evening. But this was no excuse for her actions, according to a law enforcement spokesperson who said, "If you can't tell the difference between a 12-year-old and an adult, then there are problems." Garner was charged with battery and solicitation counts related to her misconduct and was released from jail after posting a $30,000 bond. She was ultimately sentenced to 18 months of probation, but stayed silent about the case until earlier this year, when she said during an interview that she had spent over a decade trying to clear her name. The ex-NFL cheerleader, who is now 53 years old, claimed that she never touched the victim and that she was assaulted that night by someone else. Number 11. Whitney Robertson. A Miami Dolphins cheerleader landed at the center of news headlines in early April of 2019 when she was accused of assaulting her ex-boyfriend and another woman inside the man's home. 25-year-old Whitney Robertson had only dated the victim for about 3 weeks before he ended the relationship in late March. Around a week later, Robertson allegedly entered the residence through an unlocked door while the man was eating dinner with his female guest. According to reports, Robertson threw a lit candle at the pair, striking her ex-boyfriend in the hand. She then began to throw porcelain plates at the victims before her ex put a stop to the rampage and escorted her outside. Robertson fled the scene and was later found with the female victim's phone in her possession. She was booked into jail on suspicion of burglary with assault or battery, with bail set at $5,000, but updates have not been forthcoming, leaving the outcome of the case unclear. Number 10. Bryashia Atchison.
Are you alright? What's going on?
I'm sorry for Ben.
What?
ACD. A.
You realize where you are right now?
ACD?
No, you're out laying down on the ground outside of your vehicle. Just gonna try to perform some tests, okay?
I don't want to drive.
Yeah, but we're a little past that right now, unfortunately, okay? Oh, I'm just gonna...
Can I please call my son Dad?
When we're done with this, okay?
On March 8, 2025, police in Edgewater, New Jersey found an intoxicated woman passed out next to her car in a parking lot after driving over a curb. The suspect was identified as former Cleveland Cavaliers cheerleader and beauty queen, Bryashia Atchison, who was now working as an assistant Essex County prosecutor. She admitted to drinking at a bar while out celebrating her 30th birthday earlier that evening and seemed shocked when officers told her that she wasn't in Newark. With tears streaming down her face, Atchison apologized for her behavior, stating, "I just want to get home. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was this drunk." After hearing her admission, one of the officers at the scene told the woman that he had to conduct a field sobriety test. Atchison begged for permission to call her son's father, but the cops proceeded with the test and determined that she had driven while Intoxicated, she reportedly vomited after being placed in the back of a police cruiser, serving as further evidence of her inebriated state. Atchison was released from custody after being booked for operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated and refusing to take a breathalyzer test. The district attorney's office that she works for kept quiet about her arrest for the next 4.5 months, before finally disclosing the incident in August, and the case appears to be ongoing. A spokesperson for the agency said that Atchison self-reported her arrest and remained employed while the prosecutor's office monitored the situation closely. Number 9. Montia Marie Parker. In May of 2013, a Minnesota high school cheerleading captain was arrested in Minnetonka for allegedly pimping out a younger teammate and special education student. According to police, she advertised the victim's services on a popular escorting website and drove her to an apartment in Crystal, then pocketed the $60 that the victim was paid for intimacy. The very next day, Parker called the school pretending to be the girl's mother and saying she was excused for the day. She then drove the victim back to the same residence where the teen refused to have intercourse with the customer. Authorities launched an investigation after the victim's mother noticed a change in her demeanor and found suspicious text messages with Parker in her phone. A criminal complaint stated that Parker had messaged the teen asking if she was willing to have intercourse for money, then telling her to send some photos that were not too nasty but kind of cute and to show a little skin. Parker reportedly admitted to setting up the escorting ad and was charged with trafficking and promoting prostitution. According to prosecutors, she had come up with the idea of selling intimacy after a previous boyfriend had tried pressuring her into doing it, serving as an indicator that Parker knew she was committing an exploitative act when she convinced her teammate to participate. In September of 2013, Parker pleaded guilty to 3 prostitution-related charges and was sentenced to 3 years in prison with the requirement to serve at least 2 years before becoming eligible for parole. Number 8. Megan Welter. In an alarming domestic violence incident that was captured on video during the summer of 2013, an Iraq war veteran and Arizona Cardinals cheerleader was accused of attacking her boyfriend during an argument at the couple's Scottsdale home. The footage appeared to show 29-year-old Megan Welter questioning the man about some text messages he had exchanged with another woman. In the video, the victim could be seen trying to calm Welter down. Police went to the couple's residence after receiving a 911 call from Welter, who claimed that her boyfriend had attacked her. She accused the man of slamming her head into tile and pleaded with responding officers to remove him from the home. At the time, the couple had been dating for just 6 months. The victim told a much different story than Welter, claiming that he was trying to leave the property when Welter grabbed him by the hair, scratched him, and punched him in the face. He backed his claim with video he had captured on his cell phone, and the visible scratches on his arms and body further lent credibility to his version of events. In addition to physically attacking her boyfriend, Welter was accused of cutting up his ID and credit card during the fight. She admitted to hitting the victim after being confronted with the footage and was charged with aggravated assault, destroying property, and disorderly conduct. Just days before Welter's arrest, she had been the focus of a PR campaign depicting her in a highly respectable light for her military service and her high-profile status as an NFL cheerleader. The outcome of the case is unclear, most likely because Welter managed to get dozens of news articles about herself removed from the internet as the result of a lawsuit that was filed 3 years after her arrest. Number 7. Sarah Jones. Former Cincinnati Bengals cheerleader Sarah Jones was in her late 20s when she began an inappropriate relationship with a male teenage student while working as a teacher in February of 2011. Authorities eventually caught wind of the illicit conduct, and Jones lied about the nature of her interactions with the boy when questioned by police. The two were still together when she was indicted on criminal charges in March of 2016, and the young man and his family reportedly refused to cooperate with the investigation. By the time the matter made its way to court, Jones had resigned from her teaching position months earlier. But with the alleged victim and key witnesses unwilling to aid in building a case against her, prosecutors became amenable to a plea deal. In August of 2016, Jones pleaded guilty to reduced charges of misconduct and custodial interference. As part of the agreement, she admitted to having intercourse with the teen and sending him explicit text messages. The judge spared her from prison time, instead sentencing her to 5 years of diversion, which included drug testing and check-ins with a probation officer. Following the plea hearing, Jones's attorney told reporters that his client decided to plead guilty to avoid having embarrassing, steamy text messages read aloud in court. At that point, the disgraced former educator's younger partner was a legal adult, leaving them free to do as they wished. They were seen leaving the courtroom together, and news reports announced the following year that the two had gotten engaged. Number 6. Victoria Renee Thomas and Angela Keathley. A night out clubbing in Tampa, Florida took a not-so-fun turn in November of 2005 when customers complained that two women were being intimate in the bathroom and holding up the growing line. The situation erupted into violence and police were called to the scene, where witnesses identified 20-year-old Carolina Panthers cheerleader Victoria Renee Thomas as one of the suspects. Thomas was accused of striking a bar patron as she left the restroom, resulting in her arrest on suspicion of battery. It was later discovered that she had given law enforcement a fake ID, leading to an additional charge of giving police a false name. Police also arrested 26-year-old Panthers cheerleader Angela Keathley, who was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. The woman adamantly denied the allegation that they were being intimate in the bar's bathroom. Thomas pleaded no contest to the charges in March of 2006 and was sentenced to a year of probation and 50 hours of community service. She was also ordered to undergo anger management counseling and pay $400 in restitution to the victim. Keathley pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct and obstructing a police officer and was sentenced to 6 months of probation as part of her participation in a program for first-time offenders. Number 5. Carrice Profit. A former high school cheerleader is the prime suspect in a Halloween shooting in Kansas that left one teenager dead and another injured. Police responded to a report of gunfire at a Quick Trip gas station at Sedgwick County just after 10:30 p.m. In the meantime, law enforcement received a report from a local hospital about 2 gunshot victims arriving at the emergency room via a private vehicle. One of the victims, a 15-year-old boy, survived a bullet wound to the leg. The other, a 13-year-old middle school student named Donald Williams, succumbed to his wounds after arriving at the hospital. Investigators traced the crime to 19-year-old Newman University cheerleader Carrice Profit and 19-year-old Jamal Lynn Campbell. According to reports, Profit had been pictured with her teammates at the Catholic College in Wichita on the day of the shooting. 6 days later, she was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated assault, and criminal discharge of a firearm. She was released from custody after posting a $350,000 bond, and her case is ongoing. Campbell also faces several charges for Williams' death, including felony murder, but he appears to remain at large. Police have warned the public that the fugitive is considered armed and dangerous and are urging anyone with information to contact law enforcement. Number 4. Hailey Jordan Suder. In April of 2024, a 50-year-old homeless man named George Lowry was found clinging to life with severe trauma to his upper body near an encampment along the San Diego River in Santee, California. He was rushed to the hospital where he died 4 days later from his injuries. Shortly after Lowry's death, 21-year-old Austin Larry Mostrong and his brother, 19-year-old Preston Autry Mostrong, were charged with murder and torture for allegedly beating the victim to death during a dispute over a paintball gun. A third suspect, 18-year-old high school cheerleader Hailey Jordan Suder, was charged with being an accessory after the fact. She could be seen sobbing during her arraignment hearing as she pleaded not guilty and was ordered into custody on $100,000 bail. In October of 2018, Preston Mostrong pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 24 years in prison, while Austin received a 20-year sentence after pleading guilty to second-degree murder. Suder was convicted of a misdemeanor charge for lying about the brothers' involvement in the crime and was sentenced to time served, enabling her to walk free from the courtroom while her co-defendants began their journey to state prison. Number 3. Kaitlyn Hunt. In a case that sparked outrage among gay rights activists in 2013, an 18-year-old high school cheerleader named Kaitlyn Hunt accused the authorities of targeting her for her orientation. At the time, Hunt was facing criminal charges in Vero Beach, Florida, for dating a younger teenager at her school despite being legally considered an adult. But the accused predator and her supporters argue that these types of age differences are not uncommon among high schoolers and that the parties involved are not typically prosecuted for these relationships. Hunt believed she was being discriminated against for being a lesbian, and she received considerable support from the American Civil Liberties Union, as well as an online petition which garnered over 100,000 signatures calling for her release. But prosecutors refused to drop the case entirely, leaving Hunt terrified of a potential felony conviction interfering with her dream of becoming a nurse. In October of 2013, Hunt pleaded no contest to 2 counts of misdemeanor battery, misdemeanor contributing to the dependency of a child, and 2 counts of felony interference with child custody. She was sentenced to 4 months in jail, followed by 2 years of house arrest and 2 years of probation, along with the opportunity to avoid a felony conviction as long as she abided by the court's conditions. Today's topic was requested by Alma Negra 420, Beginner's Guide to Computers, and Celine de Pink 1157. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Julie Hayner. In April of 2014, a former competitive cheerleader was accused of trafficking a younger teenager who attended her old high school in the Portland, Oregon suburb of Lake Oswego. 19-year-old Julia Hayner and her alleged accomplice, 30-year-old Conrad Mason, fell under suspicion after police discovered the victim's escorting advertisement and returned the girl to her family. The suspects were taken into custody at a motel after being indicted by a federal grand jury on trafficking charges. Prosecutors would later say that the pair were in the process of grooming another teen for exploitative purposes at the time of their arrests. In June of 2015, Hayner pleaded guilty to violating the Mann Act, which makes it a crime to transport someone between states for prostitution. She faced a maximum 10-year prison term but was sentenced to 4 years after the judge took her difficult childhood into consideration. Mason pleaded guilty to transporting a minor for prostitution and spent the next 2 years awaiting sentencing before receiving an 8-year federal prison term. Number 1. Laken Snelling. On the morning of August 27, 2025, police responded to a report of an unresponsive infant at a Lexington, Kentucky residence. Officers arrived at the scene to discover that a deceased baby boy had been found inside a trash bag in a closet. It was apparent that the child had been dead for several hours and no life-saving efforts were undertaken. The baby's mother, 21-year-old University of Kentucky cheerleader Laken Snelling, wasn't at the home when the discovery was made. An autopsy to determine the infant's cause of death was inconclusive, and additional tests are being carried out in an effort to establish how he died. Snelling had just started her senior year at the university, where she was a member of the STUNT cheerleading team. She is no longer enrolled at the school and has been charged with abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. Authorities say that additional charges could be forthcoming depending on the results of further testing and the ongoing investigation. Snelling pleaded not guilty to the charges and was released from custody after posting a $100,000 bond. She's currently on house arrest at her parents' home in Jefferson City, Tennessee, while awaiting an upcoming preliminary hearing. Thanks for watching. If you could make $10 million a year working from home for 4 hours a day, or as a famous professional athlete, which option would you choose and why? Let us know in the comments section below.